As night falls over the marshy fens, a monster emerges from the water's depth and makes his way to the glowing hall towering on the hill above. The monster is Grendel from the accursed race of Cain, and he is full of vengeance for the king who built the hall and his people. This is the setting for the epic poem Beowulf and for the novel Grendel by John Gardner, which is a modern retelling of the story. Unfortunately, I encounter an increasing number of students who know nothing about the original poem, so I'm offering a summary here that will set up a discussion of the modern novel. As far as we know, Beowulf was written in Old English, the English of the Anglo Saxons, in the late 900s by an unknown author. There is evidence that this was originally a pagan story, and that it is retold in the version we have by a Christian author, who is Christianizing the superstitions and monsters of the original. It is a myth repackaged as a Christian hero tale, but the pagan and mythic elements are still there for the savvy reader to spot. In the story, a king named Hrothgar becomes powerful after winning military victories. In the custom of the Viking and Anglo Saxon era, power is held by kings who were also war leaders. The relationship between the king and his men is one of loyalty from the soldiers and generosity from the king. The greatness of a king is demonstrated by the giving of gold. He has the gold because he is powerful and has led his men successfully. He gives the gold because he is a just rewarder of courage and loyal service. Throughout the epic, Hrothgar and other good kings are celebrated as gold givers, and this is important because the giving of gifts nurtures the whole community and makes the king a figure of benevolence. It also stands in contrast to the hoarding of wealth, which is considered a great evil. So Hrothgar is successful, and to establish his leadership, he builds a great golden hall called Heorot, where he can feast with his warriors and reward them with treasure that they have won for him in battle. What Hrothgar does not know is that the hall he has built is near the lair of a dangerous monster called Grendel. Grendel's name comes from the Old English word for a water demon. He lives in the fens or marshes near Heorot and in a den accessible only by diving into the water and swimming down to it. When Grendel sees the beautiful hall built near his home, he is filled with hostility towards it. Grendel comes from an accursed race descended from Cain, and he is full of hatred for the beauty and order that Heorot represents. On the first night of feasting in the hall, Grendel breaks in and kills 30 of Hrothgar's men. This attack is repeated over and over until Hrothgar's people are full of terror. Hrothgar is now an old man, and these attacks are more than just a nuisance. What good is a king and a hall when neither of them can keep the people safe? Enter Beowulf, a war leader of the Geats. He has heard of Hrothgar's troubles and arrives at Heorot to kill the monster. Beowulf is taunted by Unferth, one of Hrothgar's men. But Beowulf quickly puts him in his place and assures Hrothgar that he will kill Grendel or die in the attempt. The monster arrives suddenly, wreaking destruction on Beowulf's men just as he did on Hrothgar's. Beowulf, realizing that no weapon will harm the monster, instead fights him with his bare hands. He grabs Grendel's arm. Desperate to get away, Grendel breaks free, but his arm is torn off in the process. Beowulf hangs Grendel's arm on the wall as a trophy, while the monster slinks away to die. This is the main part of the epic and the part that informs Gardner's novel. But there are two other episodes worth noting here. Grendel crawls back to his underwater den to die. His mother, enraged by his death, returns to Heorot the next night to avenge her son. Again, the people of Heorot suffer death and destruction. Beowulf assures Hrothgar that he will finish what he has started. He travels to the fen and swims down to the underwater cavern where Grendel's mother still lives. There he kills her, freeing Harriet from fear once and for all. Fear once. The last episode of the epic happens when Beowulf is an old man and back with his people where he is now king. An unlucky happenstance awakens a dragon who brings destruction on Beowulf's people. Though he is an old man, Beowulf is a great king who knows that it is his responsibility to defend the people. Remember that for this story and its audience, the greatness of a king was his generosity. Dragons, monsters who hoard gold, represent the opposite of this virtue. Dragons cannot use gold or benefit from it in any way. They merely possess it and destroy anyone who threatens that possession. They are the embodiment of greed. Beowulf succeeds in killing the dragon, but not before receiving his own death wound. The epic ends with his death. The 20th century novel, Grendel, is a retelling of this epic from the monster's point of view. This is a clever narrative choice by Gardner, who knows that his modern readers will be attracted to the transgressive, anti establishment views of the protagonist. Gardner's Grendel is a nihilist. He believes in nothing, cares for nothing, and derives his only pleasure from destruction. He hates and loves being hated in return. He is also an unreliable narrator. His observations are accurate, but the conclusions he draws are not necessarily trustworthy. If a dragon is the opposite of a king, then what is Grendel opposite to? Answering this question takes us to the heart of Gardner's novel. Grendel hates Heorot, a place of order, unity, poetry, and song. Above all, he hates the Shaper, whose artistic retelling of Hrothgar's deeds makes something beautiful and noble out of events that Grendel deems common or sordid. The Shaper gives the world meaning, while Grendel is committed to seeing it as meaningless. Consider as you read. How can the story of Hrothgar's people be read as a parable of the rise of civilization? How does the Shaper contribute to the development of the whole society, culturally, historically, and politically? Whose fault is it that Grendel is an outcast, and is there anything he can do about it? Does he want to do anything about it? Considering these questions gives us a pathway into Gardner's discussion of the role of literature and art in the modern world.